But you know, when people are like, I know exactly who I am and exactly the kind of environment and where I'll thrive, candidly, it's a lot of trial and error. Most of the opportunities and most of the unlock that I've created is going to be through people and network.
Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we get real about what it takes to succeed, whether it's in business, life, or both. I'm talking to game-changing and visionary women who've broken barriers, built empires, and redefined success on their own terms. They'll share their strategies, secrets, and the no BS advice you need to rise to the top. I'm your host, Jennifer Justice, also known as JJ. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I am Jennifer Justice. Today, we have Alessandra Henderson. She is the co-founder of Elektra Health. I'm sure you've heard of it, and a women's health advisor. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I am too. Alessandra and I are just nursing a hangover from Saturday night as we were at a massive party for our friend Mia and her twin sister. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my feet are a little still sore, but other than that, it was an amazing time.
It was a 50th birthday done right. It was like absolutely no notes.
Exactly. No notes. But, you know, one of the reasons why Mia and Carla could party so hard at 50 years old is some of the work that you have done, right? In your past.
Yes. Mia's been a longtime supporter and investor in Elektra Health. So just really briefly, Elektra Health is closing the menopause care gap. We've built an evidence-based telemedicine platform to support women through menopause by connecting women with experts who can prescribe, support, treat, and really take care of women, as we say, from menopause to Medicare. I'm so excited to Mia's been an incredible supporter, as have so many incredible women in our broader community.
Right. Well, because if you're lucky, you will go through it, right? And
yes, it's a privilege.
It's a privilege to go through it. And at that point, you know, 50% of the population is going through it. So, you know, so tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into women's health?
Sure. So I would say I'm an atypical founder. My background or my career is largely focused in building startups, tech startups from the ground up. I actually started in art and technology. So it was the sixth employee at a company called Artsy, which was putting a $66 billion art market online.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I came into, so I basically kind of ran their commercialization and go-to-market, but I stumbled into tech and startups through my original passion of art. And I just fell in love, right? I fell in love with building. I fell in love with building teams and brand and marketing plans and culture and just all the things that happen in that 0 to 1 stage, and was completely hooked. From Artsy, I went to business school at MIT. And then prior to Elektra, was in several early stage startup studios on the founding team. So
can I ask you first, after you left Artsy, how long were you at Artsy total?
It was 4 years.
Yeah. And why did you want to go to business school to MIT?
Gosh, this feels like ancient history at this point. But, you know, I was, 27, 28. And Artsy had grown from 6 people to 80 people. It was their seed to Series B. I was running the second largest team. I was flying around the world. I was going to all these art fairs. It was absolutely incredible. I met my husband at Artsy. It's just an incredible experience in that 20s. I learned a lot, and I'm just a learner. I learned by doing. And so I credit a lot of that kind of early success and foundational success from the Artsy days. But I looked around the room, so to speak, after 4 years, and the only person whose job I wanted was the founders of Artsy. I felt like I was running this team; it was amazing, but that job was taken. Yeah. And so, in order to both transition out of kind of the art space, but also to just give some time and exploration to see what I wanted to do next, I decided to apply to business school. This was 2014. And I would say at that point, I remember the one of the co-founders, my boss at Artsy, saying, no one goes to business school from startups. Like, you have the job that people want. People are trying to escape traditional finance or consulting to come in. But I just knew that creating the space and time to explore would be a benefit. And so just to kind of close the loop on this, while at MIT, I got really deeply involved with the entrepreneurship and innovation community.
Right.
So I TA'd 3 classes. I got to know the Bill Allett, who is the director of the Entrepreneurship Center across all MIT. So when I was graduating, I actually pitched him on the idea of setting up a startup studio in New York, kind of like an outpost to bring some of MIT to New York. So anyway, credited as just a space to go broad and finding the passion to help entrepreneurs succeed for the next several years of my career.
Right. Amazing. Okay. And did you feel like you got out of it what you wanted? I mean, it sounded like, because you TA'd, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
It's just for people, like, in particular, when they go, oh, should I go to business school? And, after a certain age, or, maybe you have kids, or whatever it is.
Yeah. I did. I would say, I don't know, in the regret decision framework, I think there's always more I probably could have eked out of it, like anything. But I met Bill Allett. I met the next group of people who, I mentioned, so I founded the MIT NYC Startup Studio, which is a mouthful. And from there, I went to Human Ventures, which is another startup studio. It's the 4th.
Yep, I know those ladies.
Yeah, an incredible team. And so to answer your question very directly, I think going later, I mean, if you can call late 20s late, it feels very young at this point. But I just had a baseline of what mattered and what didn't. I also had a lot of people kind of got into the consulting or there were a lot of my classmates still kind of stuck on the traditional path. But because I came from startups and because I had a bit of a foundational base from a career perspective, I was able to chart my course next, which was great. So no regrets. Yeah.
All right. Good. Thank you for that. All right. So then where you went to Human, what happened after that?
So and to answer your original question, right, of why I found Elektra Health. So the Elektra Health story really starts in 2017 when I actually went through my first IVF cycle. And the hormones from egg freezing impacted my vision or my eyesight, which I was floored. I had absolutely no idea that could happen. And so, like so many women or female founders who go into women's health, much of the original spark or inspiration, right, comes from your own personal experience or interaction with a healthcare system that's just not set up for us, under research, underfunded, under everything, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But it was literally walking down the street of New York when I couldn't read the avenue signs, right, in the middle of the block. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. Of course, I called my endocrinologist. I called my LASIK doctor from a year prior. I was like, what is going on? And of course, I got that standard line of, hormones impact your vision, but we know there's some correlation
but oh well.
There. Yeah.
Wear some glasses. Good for you.
Yeah. Get some glasses. But it's a long tail of symptoms. It's kind of rare. And I was like, well, this is me. This is my life. Anyway, that was the germ of the idea. And I just fell down the rabbit hole of hormonal health, looking at it through the lens of personal research, how to, care for myself across a number of different, not just eyesight, but other areas. As well as from a market opportunity, right? Taking all of that startup experience and honestly gaining the confidence, I think by that point in my career, to say, here's a space that I'm both passionate about and that really importantly, we need to talk about in women's health, is that it's a big market opportunity. This is like, we all know it's a quote problem. We also need to look at where are the dollars? How is it being spent? How can you build a really big business? And the germ of the idea was in my IVF experience, identifying menopause as a huge market opportunity, consumer with high discretionary spend, massive area, massive opportunity for multiple billion-dollar businesses that, and again, I know we'll go into it a little bit more, but said the word menopause as kind of a market to explore. And it was just, I was hooked, absolutely hooked. And took some time and, research and conferences and user research and all of the like, but decided to take the plunge and found Elektra in 2019, all with a focus on closing that menopause care gap.
Again, so when you were doing that and deciding like menopause, like no one was still talking about it, right?
No one. It's interesting.
So crazy. It's like 6 years ago.
I know. Now it's everywhere. It's like when I used to meet people at a party, not to put it in such, frivolous terms, but they'd meet me, male or female, and meet me at a party. It would be like the record scratch. It'd be like, oh, how do I get out of that? I'm going to go get a drink or something. Yeah. Now it's like everyone is clamoring to talk about it, or they know about it, or they're sharing their stories. The only thing I'll say, I was really looking into it in 2018. At that point, the market was talking about period tracking and maternity. And we still have a ways to go. Like, we are hardly solved anything. But it was really the women's health conversation was very much through those lenses. Maybe IVF, maybe people were talking about egg freezing, but very few were talking about menopause. There was one woman, Jill Angelo at Genève. She's actually amazing. She I think, really kind of pioneered the space, but no one was talking about it. The only thing I'll say is, and especially if you're a founder and looking for opportunities, it felt like the cultural and societal trends were all there, though, right? Like all the markings of it being the next wave. Right. And I say this, in 2019, it was like Sex and the City came out, right? And 50 is the new 30 with Sarah Jessica Parker looking really incredibly hot. And like that meme of the Golden Girls next to the Sex and the City women. Yes. And what 50 looks like today. Yeah. J-Lo in 2020 performed at the Super Bowl. She looked amazing at 50. And so it was, you could tell between women in positions of power, we need more of them, obviously, but it was like consumer with high discretionary spend, cultural, the startings of a cultural conversation about to happen. And then just recognizing that this was clearly going to be probably the next big market opportunity in women's health coming behind the menopause. The maternity conversation. Right, exactly. Because that's much sexier, right? Yeah. And so you officially launched it in 2019 with a co-founder, yeah? Yeah, my incredible co-founder, Janine Versey. That was my number kind of one. It took 6 months to find her. Trialed with two other co-founders, to be completely honest, who are amazing. I still see them in the New York community. But with incredible co-founder Janine Versey as the co-founder and COO, as well as a founding physician, Dr. Anna Barbieri. She joined within kind of a month or two of founding. I really believe, especially in women's health, having real clinical and science, having that expert team around you, both on the founding team as well as an advisory board, is really important. Why did you think that you needed a co-founder? Well, I'll answer this with two quick, in two ways. One, I'm a firm believer that 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. Yeah. I knew of enough founder friends and just recognizing to push myself further, as well as the opportunity to have outsized impact, right? If you get invited to a panel, you're trying to do BD or whatever it might be. Having more of you in the world is just, it's net positive. With that, as well as to push the idea further. That's one answer. The second one, which is also true, is I actually got advice from a very good friend, incredible investor, invested in our company, female investor, who said the reality of the situation, if you are going out to fundraise as a first-time female founder with no healthcare experience, finding someone is going to make your life exponentially easier. Right. So that might be different today. You speak with a lot of female founders on this podcast. I'm curious if that still rings true today, but in 2018, first time female founder trying to build in healthcare.
Yeah. It's incredibly hard for women. And, even like adding a man makes it 100 times easier, which is so sad, but true.
Yeah.
But, I think we're finding our own path and finding our own, capital, et cetera. So,
yeah.
Yeah. But look, it's like, you want to set yourself up for success. It's great to bet on yourself, but but you want to also set yourself up for success. So it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been amazing. And I know we'll get to this a bit, but I have transitioned from my role at Elektra, and Janine, having built in the trenches, basically as almost like a co-CEO along the way.
Right.
She was able to kind of take the helm, and she's really remarkable. It pushes the idea further, I think, rather than feeling like there's this solo genius, which is not true.
And it's hard. Look, I'm a single mom, you know what I mean? And I it takes me twice as long to do things because I have my own business and I'm a single mom. So it's like, I don't have that backup of, if I'm doing this, somebody's out making money, or if I'm out making money, somebody's taking care of the kids. Like, I have to do it all. So, I got to give myself some lenience, So no, I get it. Yeah. I just like to make myself everything hard for myself,
Yeah. Well, essentially raised by a single mother. I super appreciate that.
Yeah. So, okay, and then, Elektra was built up and you decided to leave and pursue other opportunities. So let's get into that.
Yeah. So really proud of what we built, and Elektra's doing incredibly. So, but under my tenure as 5 years as CEO, raised just shy of $8 million, built and launched a product, and by product, I mean a telemedicine platform. We were the first menopause company to actually partner and contract directly with a health plan. So yes, we work directly with women, but also in 2022, which feels still early in this market, we partnered with Mass General Brigham Health Plan to support their members, plus several other incredible forward-looking health plans, built an incredible team, put research into the market. Like, there's a lot of really amazing things that I'm proud of our team for doing, all through a pandemic and the SVB crisis. And I feel like, there's memes of founders who are the 2019, 2020 cohort, where we just kind of felt like the punches just kept coming.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, it was a long couple years. But I in last year, so in early 2024, made the difficult but the absolutely right decision to transition from the CEO role to a board member. Mm-hmm. And it was largely driven through personal and family related kind of needs. I needed, after 5 years of running hard charging years of running a startup, I needed to get my own house in order. And so we had closed around at the end of 2023. We had money in the bank, $3.5 million from University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, an incredible team, an incredible co-founder. All the pieces were in place, and decided, to make that transition, both to focus on kind of myself. I'll share here a big part of this. In the background of running Elektra, I had gone through my own health journey, and so additional 6 rounds of IVF, 2 miscarriages. I've since gone through medical menopause. Like, it is, we all see the LinkedIn stories and the articles, and those are real high highs, and they're an incredible part of a founder journey. But in the background of running Elektra, I had just a lot going on personally. Yeah. And so again, looking at 2024, right, January 1st, waking up and saying something's got to be different, both for myself as well as for the team.
Right.
And so worked with an incredible co-founder and our board to make that transition happen in Q1 of last year. And I can say it was the best decision that I made, that our team made, and Elektra is doing incredibly well under Janine's leadership with an incredible board behind us and riding the market momentum.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the best case scenario you could have, right? A board.
It's so hard, but yeah,
hard, obviously. But like, if you have to make that hard decision to have that kind of support, I interviewed a female founder last week. It will be on, and she got kicked out by the board. You know what I mean? It's like, because she made, a decision without, looking back anyway.
Yeah.
Asking all of the right questions of the people who are investing and going to be on the board, and not really questioning it and going, what do I know, et cetera, not following her intuition. So, this is a great story of doing the opposite and following your intuition and what you know that you needed for yourself personally,
Yeah. Well, it's also, and listen, it's a privilege to be able to kind of know who you have around the table. Obviously, you can pick your team, investors, especially when if you're a female founder and you've got kind of what the options in front of you, but I have to really credit the board and the team as well. But I can't tell you the number of female founders who actually reached out after making the announcement on LinkedIn, asking, how did you do it? One, how did you do it? Two, I feel incredibly trapped. Some of them had raised tens of millions of dollars, later stage. And just the number of founders, and specifically founder CEOs who, after maybe they've been doing it for 5-10 years, were also interested to see how there might be an exit ramp for them. Not that they were committed or that they hadn't given it their all, but it is a very heavy expectation to put on founders to always be on all of the time and to charge as hard for that many years.
Yeah.
So
with what end goal, Yeah.
I
mean, yeah. It's like, we all know, we all have seen the few things that have happened successfully, whether that's an IPO or a sale or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not standard, right? That's an exception. So it's really hard.
Yeah.
All right. And so obviously throughout your career, and, this seems so insurmountable for so many people. You think you go to college, you're supposed to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And, if you're in art, you stay in art, and then you go to business school and you work for venture, then that's what you do. Like, you have pivoted so much and figured out how to use your strengths to your advantage to keep yourself in the market. Like, how did you do that?
Oh, that's a great question. Part of it might just be personality. In terms of, there are a couple of, I wouldn't say mantras, but kind of goalposts that I've followed that have guided my career, I'd say. The first one is just always follow great people, right? And it's seems very basic. And it doesn't have to be the person with all of the degrees, right? But if you do find a team, like when I joined Artsy, it was it was 2 years prior to launch, and it was completely kind of different than the Artsy that you saw now.
Yeah.
But following good people, two, always following your curiosity, right? And three, just constantly be willing to bet on yourself.
Yeah.
And those are three very basic mantras. There's a lot of support and a lot of amazing people along the way that have helped do that, right? My partner, the people who are cheering you on. I know when we reconnected recently, it's like the group chat of people who support you and believe in you to find that confidence when you might not have it yourself. I would say over the course of my career, to go from art into menopause is certainly not the most intuitive line from A to B. But it really makes sense in my book, and or in my mind, I can see the through lines And it's oftentimes been, interesting conversations or introductions from people that have led from one thing to the next. And letting your kind of mind be expansive around where there are some market opportunities. Now, I will say I am squarely, my passion remains and is still focused on healthcare, and especially through the women's health. The definition of women's health is kind of expanded beyond just menopause. Like, it's really what are conditions? How do we just improve the health of women? Maybe whether that's disrupting the system or, coming internally, right, and working within the existing system to advocate for support and better care for women. But I'm probably hooked on this market for now. But who knows? If we did it here in 15 years, it could be something very different. So,
well, I mean, let's hope that women's health is something very different in 15 years. But at least we can see the seeds that are planted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, but you say some interesting things in that, like, follow the right people and believe in yourself, really. But that's so hard for so many women.
Yeah.
Right. We've been told, we're always underestimated, underserved, qualified, under whatever, all the unders, and for us to then believe that we can do these things when it's not a clear path. On top of it, all the shitty advice we're given about that, play it safe and all this. And then now, as we're saying, there's no more DEI. And let's be clear, DEI helps every single person other than a straight white man that's also not a veteran or have some kind of disease.
Yeah.
Right?
My coping mechanism is laughter and humor. So I'm laughing to that.
Yes.
It's
That's all we can do. It's like so crazy. It's so fucking crazy. You're like,
no.
You can't make it up, right? So,
I really, I hear you. And it is, I mean, I appreciate that you dropped an F-bomb because I'm from Massachusetts and I'm a math school. And so I'm like, it is so fucking hard.
Yeah.
I hated public speaking. This would have been terrifying to me probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I certainly was not as confident as maybe this seems and projects here whatsoever. Like true heart palpitations, feeling like out of body and getting off the stage and like what just happened. Even in literally giving a toast at a friend's birthday. I'm not even talking, on stage at a big conference or anything. Having a supportive network, a supportive partner, or a supportive friend group has certainly kind of helped bolster that. But I feel like the advancements and the confidence happens in much more incremental steps than I think people see in when they hear a founder interview and things like that.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And so I was raised to be very humble, not talking about accomplishments. And I feel like it's just been probably every single day pushing myself to push it just a little bit further than not. We'll also say I have had the benefit of a handful of kind of bosses or male too, who have kind of identified and helped. I wouldn't say I've had like really rigorous mentorship by any means.
Right.
But I've had the benefit of senior people, advocating on my behalf. Yeah. That doesn't have to be senior, actually. I believe fully that peers can be mentors as well.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. And it's interesting. Like I've been talking, a lot about female versus male mentorship. And while I feel like there's a lot of well-intentioned men and they can definitely help, when it comes to something like what I do, it often backfires, because we, sometimes we can't be don't feel like we can be our full selves in the company of mixed company when you don't know, what you don't know and you feel stupid and we're already underestimated. So, it goes both ways. That like I've had great male mentors. I've had great men in my life who've supported me. But I've always felt my truest self. And, when I am talking to like an executive coach or a lawyer, because I have to hire lawyers myself, I truly believe that anybody who represents himself has a fool for a client. And, that's when you can, really feel the most vulnerable about how stupid you feel about what you're asking for, et cetera. So, I think that runs the gamut. Let me ask you, when you are thinking about these things and what you're pivoting, et cetera, like how have you identified like what your strength is and your passion at the same time so you can then really like use that to move it forward?
Yeah, great question. I know it's funny. I used to, in interviews, always ask, what is your superpower? Right. And it's kind of standard of understanding. Candidly, I don't know that I know my superpower. And it's funny because I've asked so many people that interviewing. I mean, I do generally, right? I'm not a coder. I'm a lateral thinker, not a linear thinker. I'm generally, I feel like network and people and sales is like the commercialization. I know I just listed several, but when people are like, I know exactly who I am and exactly the kind of environment and where I'll thrive. Candidly, it's a lot of trial and error, I think. I mean that most of the opportunities and most of the unlock that I've created either from Elektra or as I bring this forward is going to be through people and network. Not like, oh, I know fancy people.
Right.
But like I'm a firm believer and have leaned into maintaining relationships and continuing to use, I do love selling. I do love meeting with people. And now I love advocating. And so, how those skill sets fit into the next role is, I do know a bit of what I bring, but I don't have the set pet answer of like, this is exactly who I am.
You don't have your own elevator pitch. And by the way, you do know fancy people. We were just at a party with a lot of.
All right. We do know fancy people, fancy, fun people though, not snobby people.
Exactly. All right. Stop selling yourself short.
That's true. That's true. We do live in New York. There are some great people here, but I feel like the identity shift and the ego, the ego self-check or just the last year, I would say, coming out of Elektra, I've never been both simultaneously have utter confidence that whatever comes next, confidence in myself and whatever comes next, combined with what the fuck I don't know, because Elektra it was my identity.
Yeah.
When I started fundraising our seed round 2 weeks after my daughter was born. I mean, in adult diapers, right? But like most of the time when I was with her, I was thinking about it, right? Founders, you're kind of consumed by it. And it's my first baby. After this, I look at JD or job descriptions of VP of sales or, commercial, chief commercial officer. And it just feels like such a box as opposed to this very truly the lack of separation between self and work as a founder. And so I'd say there has been a lot of searching on the professional side in the last year. And most of the growth that we can say was probably more on the personal side in the last year. So I don't know from a full time, I do have areas of focus and passion. I'm working with companies. I'm advising and consulting with companies, everyone from Let's Talk Menopause, a national menopause nonprofit, to Noom, to several other early stage up to later stage companies.
Yeah.
But as I think about the next full-time role, I'm very interested in taking women's health to a larger stage at a later stage company where I can champion in an area where there's, we can just champion on a more global or bigger stage as opposed to innovating from the ground up. Yeah. What that role looks like is still coming together. And that will probably just take time.
Amazing. Well, that is a great place to then say, let you go on your way, as I know you're very busy. But ultimately, and the end of every one of these podcasts, we ask the same question. And that is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
I love this question. There are a lot that came to mind, but to answer directly, I'd say this is both the best and the worst in one go, which was, when you meet a new person, just ask them questions about themselves, because people have a huge ego and they love talking about themselves.
Right.
I actually think it's great advice, because you learn. Half of sales is just listening, right?
Right.
So I've learned a lot through that. However, it also meant that it took me a much longer amount of time to find my own voice.
Right.
If you meet someone else and especially, males, but also women, if you just let them talk about their accomplishments or them kind of own the conversation, it's much harder to establish yourself. So honestly, it took me a decade plus longer to kind of unlearn the just foundational, just let other people promote themselves and you be the quiet one.
Right. Oh my God. Because that really circles back into the way that you introduced it. It really circles back into just put your head down and do the work and it'll come to you. Like we have 3 themes, basically. That's one of them. Another is don't trust your intuition. And the third is to play it safe, but they all are intertwined and women get all this advice all the time. So it all comes down to the fundamentals of what this advice really is. So I love the way you couch that. So thank you. Thank you so much for being on. If people want to find you, hire you, have you take women's health to the next level and your next new job, how do they do that?
Sure. So please reach out to me at AlessandraHenderson.com, which is a mouthful. But I have a website. If you just Google me or LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. I also please encourage any woman who is navigating menopause. You do not have to do it alone. There are resources. There are things you can do. You can feel better. So please also go to elektrahealth.com if you need support.
Yeah. And recognize the fact that no, it's not just like a frozen shoulder or, it's not just all of a sudden hot in here. Like just that's part of it, right? Is so many women don't want to acknowledge it because there's such a stigma.
There's the symptoms day to day, but there's the long-term preventative health. If you can take care of yourself in your 40s and 50s and things you can do, your 70, 80-year-old self is going to really thank you. So think long-term here as well.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice. Thanks to MedJet for supporting the Lady Business podcast. If you're hospitalized or your security is threatened while traveling, they can get you home. I'm a MedJet member and have been for years. Everyone who travels should be. Enroll before your next trip at medjet.com. Thanks for tuning in to Taking Care of Lady Business. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And also share this episode with a friend who needs that extra push to own their success. If you want more strategy stories and exclusive content, follow us on TikTok at Taking Care of Lady Business, on Instagram at thejustice.dept and Jennifer Justice L, or visit our website at thejusticedept.com. Taking Care of Lady Business is a production of Lady Business LLC.